All right, welcome everybody online. How many people do we have tonight, Daniel?
We've got 63 people online.
63 people online. And a whole lot more than 63 here in the room. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm JT Scott. I'm the Ward 2 City Councilor. I'm really glad to see you all. It's been a while since I've seen this many of you. But before we get started, I want to introduce our live interpreters for this meeting. We do have live captioning. You can see the Portuguese captioning on screen. But for folks who are on Zoom, we also have the interpretation panels that will be live shortly. Our three interpreters, Analia, Bertolt, and Smarlene, are going to give short instructions in 3 languages. And then if you are here and you need live interpretation, they will also tell you how to get that. We have devices for that as well. So before we get started, Analia, please.
Buenas tardes a todos. Nosotros somos intérpretes, estamos con Rosera Languages. Vamos a tener interpretación en español, en portugués, en Haitian Creole. Si necesitan interpretación, por favor, vénganos a ver a nosotros. Nosotros le damos el equipo para que puedan escuchar de manera simultánea. Si están en Zoom y necesitan interpretación, busquen el globo terráqueo, aprieten en el globo terráqueo y escojan el canal, en mi caso, de español, y ahí nos pueden oír de manera simultánea. Gracias.
Bonsoir tout le monde, nous sommes Summerville, nous faisons l'interprétation en créole, espagnol et portugais. Si que vous sous Zoom, vous avez participé à l'interprétation que nous avons, tant pis, cliquez sur le petit bloc qui n'a pas joué, et puis cliquez français, parce que pas de créole haïtien sur le modèle ça. S'il vous plaît, si vous avez une interprétation en personne, venez côté moi derrière, et puis m'appeler ou avec ma parole ou mon casque, vous êtes capable de prendre moi. Merci.
Boa noite para todos, meu nome é Bertolt, intérprete de português. Se você precisar de interpretação via Zoom, é só clicar no globinho embaixo ali, para poder acessar meu canal. Se estiverem aqui em pessoa, busquem ali atrás e entregamos os tradutores para a interpretação. Muito obrigado.
All right, thank you very much for being here, and actually thank you to the Summernova folks for paying these interpreters to be here tonight. So we're going to get started. For those of you who haven't been to one of these before, it's been a while since we did one. This is a neighborhood meeting because I have always felt, as a resident of the neighborhood, that we make better decisions when we can see each other, when we can hear each other, and we can have those conversations that really matter about what we want to see in our neighborhood. So there's been a lot of work for a long time. Folks from the neighborhood council are here tonight who have been working on community center concepts, who have been working on negotiating community benefits. And if you do not know about all the incredible community benefits agreements, negotiations they have done, I strongly encourage you to check them out. Again, Union Square Neighborhood Council. It's a fully volunteer, community-based organization. It really fights for all of us. I am the Ward 2 City Council. And so what that means is that when it comes to zoning changes, they are things that can be introduced by the mayor. There are things that can be introduced by property owners. There are things that can be introduced by members of the community. But what I need to see is I need to see that you are informed. And I need to see that I can hear from you, whether you're here or there. So my goal tonight is to hear from as many of you who need to make your voices heard as possible. And as many of you too. So we are going to start with a brief presentation from the Summernova people to talk about their idea, the concept that they've been working on. And it is just an idea. This is not yet a zoning amendment. This is not even something that's before the city council. This is the community conversation that, in my opinion, needs to happen before it comes to the city council. So I'm glad you're here to be part of that conversation. My hope tonight is that we can hear each other and start a conversation amongst ourselves that can continue at the bar at Arena or on Reddit or I don't know, wherever people talk about things these days. Twitter's dead, right? And that hopefully this team can hear and take that feedback really to heart, because as far as I'm concerned, nothing goes without having a broad sense of what the neighborhood needs and making sure that these kind of proposals meet the neighborhood's needs. So with that, I am going to, is there anything I'm forgetting to say? Nah, all right. With that, I'm going to hand this over to Summernova folks. If you have friends that have missed this, I am recording it right now. So this is my first time using Zoom. I'll be honest with you, this is my first massive hybrid meeting, so I hope I'll have the recording available for you as soon as I can figure out how to do it. But that said, I'd like to introduce Colin and Magic and Jenny and the Summernova team. They are going to go through a brief presentation. For those of you who are online, when it comes to that, we will make it easy for you to get your voices heard too, and I'll step through that after the presentation. So for right now, let's hear about what they have to say. Thanks.
All right. How's everybody doing this evening? It's good to see everybody here. I'm not gonna lie, I see a lot of new faces and a lot of old faces. A lot of faces that we've done a lot of programs and events with, and a lot of new faces from the same area that I've grown up for 15 plus years. I can see even a couple of faces that are my cousins. I have my daughter up here in the front. I mean, she goes to school here, my son right here. I have kids that I teach basketball and football. I've been here for numerous years. Again, let me introduce myself. My name is Magic Alphonse. I've lived in Summerville for about 17, 18 years. And I lived in every corner of Summerville, mostly in the Mystic Projects in East Summerville itself. I want to let you guys know that today, even though we're having a brief presentation about the Summernova expansion proposal, I want to also remind you guys, this is an open discussion. An open discussion to see how you guys feel about what's going on in the city, what's going on with the involvement of all of the organizations that we are involved in. But before we go into a brief history, I want to let you guys know that I've been a person that I've only been involved with community work, rather if it's been in the Mystics, doing basketball, or doing Pop Warner football, or doing tutoring, or just helping kids out at the Summerville High School. I've been doing it for 10 plus years. And let me let you know something, guys. I don't know nothing about development. I don't even trust developers. So just to let you know about this project is a brand new thing to me, to be a part of something that can evolve. It all started with that man right there. You look at that picture right there, it says Forever Hollywood. Hollywood was a prominent figure in the Mystics, all around Summerville when it came to youth. He always was trying to influence more. When he passed away, it hit me very hard. I did a big gathering at Foss Park. I wanted everybody to come just so we could show respect to a community leader. And I'm not gonna lie, when that happened, I just wanted to see people to just grieve with me. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of faces that I didn't trust or I didn't know, but there was one face that did approach me. And that was Colin. And this is before even knowing he was a developer. I just knew him as a person that came up to me and was like, yo, what can we do? What can we do next to basically keep pushing his mission? And today I have the opportunity to be a part of Summerville. And before we go into details, what have we been up to and what the expansion is about, I want to introduce Colin. Yeah.
Gotta say, a lot of new faces, and I'm very excited about this because that's what this is about. That's what this space is about. You look around, we created this space to create conversation. And there's not enough of that in this city, and that's what we've heard from the narrow conversations that we've had from the tenants that we are on campus, the neighborhood group that we've talked to. But we want to hear more of that. And that's the whole point of this event tonight. And thank you, JT Scott, for hosting that and bring out all the people that we want to hear from. We want to collect information from you, what you hear, what's going on in the city, what do you like, what don't you like. And particularly, I think we want to learn what didn't go right with the developments that we're seeing around other parts of the city. This is a very special neighborhood. It has a lot of history of innovation. stories that I've heard from people that I've met in this room. And so I hope that at the end of the event, not only you learn more about this project, but participate in this project and tell us some of the things that you want to see change. What are the priorities of the community? Right, so far we've heard it's community center. So far we've heard, mental health support. A number of lists, a big list of things that we hope to address with this first stab at the project. And like JT was saying, it's not set in stone. There's still a long process. And part of it is to get this information to create the best outcome of a project. That community is led by the community. And part of the two big problems that we've heard so far, and you see that in the project when the team presents, are the climate crisis. And if you live around here, you see the flooding that's happening. This summer we've had historical rainfalls. And it's an existential crisis that we all struggle with. And it's not just Summerville or this particular neighborhood. It's the whole world. And the people before me have planted the seed to have Greentown Labs, and happy, birthday Greentown Labs for having been here for over 10 years now. And organically, that has sown a lot of climate technology companies that are really going to make an impact in this world. And I truly believe in what they're doing. And I hope this project can help them, find solutions, make impact. They're really going to change the world. We solve some of the issues that we're seeing, like flash flooding, extreme heat, etc. And through our conversations, we've also learned that social welfare is a big issue here. Homelessness, putting food on the table, violence at school. Those are things that maybe, some of us never heard. I don't have kids, but, it was shocking to me when they're saying they're gang violence at parks. They don't feel safe in the public spaces. They don't feel safe sometimes in the school. So this is why we created this place as a pilot. This is free, safe space, open speech. You come here with open mic night, anybody's welcome. And if you get a jam-packed party like this, then we got to upgrade our system and make it bigger. And that's part of this, the forefront of this project is led by the community center. That's why we come up with it. And what the community center can do, that's up to you. We want to hear from you how you want to see that space, right? And I want to appreciate everybody's time, and please come up to me, say hi and introduce yourself, or I would love to learn your story and what is meaningful to you. And before I pass it on, I do want to address, there's an elephant in the room where there's some flyers going around where, people think aeronaut is going away and Washington Building project's going away. We've had numerous conversations. Hi, Ron. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. And we've had numerous conversations about the project. We just don't know what we're building yet, right? We've got to prioritize what the community wants to see. And this is exactly the type of conversation we want to have. So I'm very excited to have everybody here. We want to have your input. And hope you enjoy it, and let's be respectful and have a really good time.
And I want to say, thank you for what was it, 63 people? Do we have more people going on?
72.
Oh, we are rising. We are rising. So we have, hopefully in 2 minutes we have 100. But so we have 70 plus people. Thank you guys for actually joining the live, and thank you again, guys, for actually being a part of this conversation. Just like Colin was saying, it's all about the conversation. And if you guys are even wondering, we've been having thousands and thousands of conversations. And I honestly partnering up with people like Russ and Kristen right here. Kristen has been a battery in my back to make sure that every event and every workshop that we are conversating with people, making sure that we have QR codes and that we're asking youth and asking the community, what do you want next? How do we want to do these events? And I actually praise her. I really do praise her for actually being a part of this team. She's not only She may seem loud, but she's loud for all the right causes. Sometimes she's on our butts to make sure that we're doing the right stuff for the youth, making sure that we have the cups stocked up for the bevy over there, make sure that you guys look that up. Make sure that we have enough snacks for the community center so everybody is basically rocking their teeth with the chips and candy and stuff. But we love it. We love it with the youth. But other than that, it's all about the conversation. And to go more in depth about those thousands and thousands of conversations, we have somebody from the team, Jenny. Talk more about it.
My name is Penny. And I used to work for the city, many of you might know me. And if you told me around 2014, when I was a strategy leader for the Unions for Development, that I would be here on behalf of the developer today, I would call you crazy, but here I am. So I have been fortunate enough to be a part of these conversations that Summernova has had with you all over the past 5 years. I worked with marginalized people in the city. And so I spoke to a lot of people in Ward 7 at Clarendon from North Street. And from these conversations, these are some priorities that emerged as to what the community, what they want to see in a development at Summernova. So with this zoning expansion that Summernova is proposing, we would get a youth-driven multi-generational community center. Now, how long have we been waiting for a community space in Summerville? With this zoning change, Summernova would contribute maybe the largest contribution to the housing trust in the history of development in the city. We have climate and equity priorities that are going to bring jobs here. So all of these companies that would be here would be at the forefront of the climate revolution and creating the most innovative climate tech to combat the social and climate woes that we are seeing today. This would also mean job creation in addition to having all of these companies right here at our doorsteps. In addition to this, the zoning change would bring a $5.5 million social impact fund that would go to the organizations like the ones I volunteer with that are serving the most vulnerable people in our community. Thank you.
Even through all the research of finding out what the priorities were, there were one thing that was basically noticed, that nobody was waiting. The climate didn't wait, the community didn't wait. So Summernova did not wait. Just to remind you, did not wait. About 3 years ago, Summernova actually went to the high school and helped build its first robotics club. To the point right now, if you guys know anything that's been going on with the robotics club, I guess they won like a couple of like trophies and like tournaments and stuff for the past few months and stuff. So they've been rocking. And not only that, people were asking, youth was asking, community was asking. They wanted safe spaces. They wanted more spaces for not only youth, but for the community to basically enjoy and create. And that's when a couple doors down, the dojo 1.0 was built. It was much smaller. A lot of programming was happening over there. And now you guys are actually sitting in the second edition. It's the 2.0 dojo right now. And I want to remind you guys, there's been a lot of cool programming, workshops, and gatherings happening. I can actually spend an hour just telling you the memories and stories that's been basically happening. One of the prime things that I want to say teen empowerment, one of the main things they wanted to basically knock down from the city was two things: the mental health awareness, the mental health crisis, and the violence in the city. We actually started doing open mic nights here and movie nights here, to the point that before our movie nights, in this little green room, we would spend 30 minutes to an hour before a movie nights just asking people mental health questions, like what is going on with you? Just key questions, just because we wanted to just be there. Even me being the dojo director, I even actually took some time to actually get my own mental health certificate from CHA as well too, just so I can understand more how to communicate with youth, because it's such a big deal. In the dojo, Summernova has always been behind that. Not only through that, but even kids that are about to graduate high school, they're conflicted to rather going into college or starting their own business. But we're not the type of people to be like, hey, you got to do this one thing. But we like to exercise options and create things for the community, to the point that we created financial literacy events for the youth. I'm telling you, it's real deep. It's real deep, to the point every month we have a dojo game day where kids can actually win prizes and be very competitive, both open to the community. I actually have a couple of youth here as well too, that actually can tell you a couple of stories. I'm sorry to put you guys on the spot. Would anybody actually want to share any stories?
Don't forget this Mystic Kids in the back.
Oh yeah, and big shout outs. I also want to let you guys know too, we have a big partnership with the Mystic Learning Center. Not only do we do events with them, but they also volunteer and help us out with a lot of events that happen here. All the way to, you see these paintings on the wall over here? These were done by Mystic Youth. And it was to the point that Summernova was like, hey, you know what? Let's give all these kids $25 gift cards for their work. That's the type of community that I want to be a part of. A community that not only teachers and community leaders, but even the people that are building the buildings wants to be involved. Colin here sometimes, he comes here and he gets his butt kicked and taken, but he still loves us, it's whatever, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, it's just one thing that we always have gotten from this is that we need more. Look at you guys here. It's more people standing up than sitting down. Everybody's been screaming for more. We need more space, more programs, more of this. And it brings us to our next point, more density. We believe we're doing the right thing, and we would like to do more of it. And to speak more about the more density and more of the expansion, we're going to have Carlos come up and speak more about it.
I don't know how you feel about special speech, but hi everyone, I'm Carlos. I'm a Border resident. I moved to the Border area 8 years ago when I moved from Mexico to do my master's in applying at MIT, and it's been a pleasure to being a Summerville resident. Honestly, to me being able to work on this project in neighborhood that I've been living since I moved here has been a very exciting opportunity. Just to set some context really quick, Summernova is the area between that used to be the Ames and Park, between Park Street and Market Basket, and between tracks and a little bit behind Summerville Avenue. And Summernova today, as it has been for over 100 years, is a place for innovation. It's a very eclectic mix of tenants that really creates this unique place. Tenants that are solving, as Colin was already saying, the problems of the future, climate, energy, the future of food, the future of construction is happening here. Also, a very diverse group of businesses that make this place diverse and fun. Erna, the Bouldering Projects, Carolicious, Summerville Chocolate, like is again eclectic, fun, different. And over the last couple of months, more other type of uses are coming up in here. The Bike Kitchen moved to the dojo. We're very happy to have added this type of finding a home in Summerville, and the Summerville Media Center moved just down the street. And we're hoping for them to call Summernova a home for the future to come. So we think this place is incredible, and we only want more of what we have. So we're running out of space, and we want more space for current and future tenants, current and future businesses. Ooh, this is stuck. Yeah, current and future businesses. More space for the community, more space for community centers. So more space and more density will mean in the current vision, over 1.9 million square feet of new development, which will include the 25,000 square feet community center, and 8,000 or more square feet of daycare, over 50,000 square feet of open space, over 50,000 square feet of incubator and sandbox spaces. We're committing to a 0.6 parking ratio. Over 100 trees in an area of Summerville that really needs tree coverage. We're really pushing hard, and we're going to hear in a bit about landscape and ecosystem restoration. So as I said, the 30 million square, the 25,000 square feet of the center will be around 30 million investment, and with a budget to operate for over 10 years, and the 5.5 million social impact fund that Jenny mentioned. And this is key for us in our vision. Summernova campus expansion is designed to bring innovation and resources to people and people to innovation through access, opportunity, and pathways to jobs. We truly believe in this correlation and cooperation between community and development. And we really hope the proposal we have forward and with your help, we're gonna get that type of vision. So regarding landscape, we believe this is very important. So I'm going to invite Myung Jong, who is being our amazing landscape and ecosystem consultant, to talk about it.
Find your clothing. I'm a landscape architect. I've been doing landscape work here for about 30 years. Actually, next week's going to be 30 years for me. And I have a secret, which is we do a lot of work in Boston, but we love to do work in summer. Because you guys get us. You guys protect the landscape. You really fight for sustainability, all the things that we believe in, we know you do. So we're so excited to be here. When Colin first reached out to us and asked us to consider being part of the project, we just thought everything that you said, this is going to be a paradigm shifting project, and we're really, really excited. So, and as other people have mentioned earlier, I think what we're just here as an introduction. Haven't started designing, and we're really looking forward to starting the process. But we wanted to share some kind of guiding principles that have started to set up our thinking for the project. So, some of the things that are going to kind of shape the project are rain gardens, pollinator gardens, microforests, seed corridors, really focusing on biodiversity and bringing more flora and fauna to the neighborhood. Next slide. And what you can see here is we're hoping that within our, you can see our property line, that we will be making an amazing project, but also that will be an incredible neighbor, that we're going to be an incredible influencer for Summerville, and bringing all of this this notion of different kinds of landscapes into Summerville. Next slide, please. And so this is what the site looks like today. It is impervious, it is vehicular centric, and it's a parking lot, which if you go to the next slide, this is our vision for how we want to do it. It's a place that's a green oasis, pedestrian focused, biodiverse, resilient. The last thing I want to say is, for the last 20 years, we've been doing a lot of healing gardens with various hospitals throughout the United States. And I think this idea of equity and biodiversity is something that we hope to bring to this project, is to make sure that the public spaces that we make, both inside and outside, strengthen people, entertain you, and bring joy to everyone's life. So I think I'm the closer. I'm the closer. So I think we want to open this up discussion, and I'm going to let Magic kind of organize this, but we really are so grateful that you came out tonight and are looking forward to the start of the conversation. Thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody for actually coming and actually listening to the presentation. I want to let you guys know the most important part is the conversation, is the thought about what's next. And as we move on to the next part of the Q&A, I want you guys to really kind of think and also dream, because not only for the youth that has passed away here, but the community that always had the chance to just actually dream with us. How do the future look for them? How can they prosper in that? How can they actually gain more network and more knowledge from that? So I want you guys to do that same thing that when I'm doing programs and events with you, to do that same thing too when you think about those questions. Just take that dream with us, right? I definitely want to give a special thanks to all the organizations that we all work with. From all the newer organizations, we have the Union Square Neighborhood Council. I see a lot of faces from there. They have used the space to continue conversations of what needs to happen in a proper way around Union Square. So we do acknowledge them for actually using the space for good for the future. Also, the Summerville Bike Kitchen, for actually using the space for good, because obviously we want people to ride more bikes in Summerville and less cars. So having that connection to when your bike is getting flat, just to come over to the dojo and talk to one of the Summerville Bike Kitchen dojos, you know, and it'll fix everything up. But other than that, your faces, everything makes this more important when you guys are here, because it puts us on the race to know what we got to do next, because we need to have that conversation. We're not afraid to have that conversation, and we are part of that community. Not only are you talking to the developers, but you're also talking to a person that loves to create and evolve the community. So definitely thank you to even Kristen. Thank you for Russ. I know Russ is one of those hardcore architects. He's been actually putting a lot of stuff together for us, you know, and that's all. Give yourself a round of applause, please.
All right, so my role here is just to direct traffic and get your voices heard. So I just want to reemphasize, this is a neighborhood meeting. So the thing I want to hear most from is y'all, because y'all are in the neighborhood and you care about the neighborhood. The reason we have these is because we can give you time to hear and to talk and listen to your neighbors before it goes to the city council, before it goes to the planning board, before the ink is dry, as it were. So I know they worked on this a lot, but as far as I'm concerned, this is just a starting concept. And so, as Magic said, I want to hear, and I hope what they hear will shape what they have. This is not the last meeting. This is probably not even the last neighborhood meeting, although next time I think I'm going to rent an auditorium. You know, again, I'll take as long as it takes to get this right, because I think the neighborhood deserves to get it right. I think the city deserves to get it right. And having lived through the Union Square process, just as a neighbor, I know how bad they got it wrong. So let's do better. All right. So with that said, I thank you, Daniel, for helping me out online. Daniel is running. We've got the screen. The chat is on the screen, so everybody, y'all can see what your neighbors online are saying. And for people online, if you do want to talk, if you've got thoughts, if you've got questions, please use that little raise hand button. And it's Daniel's fault if we don't see you. No, I'm kidding. For folks in the room, I just want to open it up, right? So please, again, remember, if you're in the chat, everybody can see you. Please be nice. And here, you know, we're all here to hear from you. So I already see the very first hand very excitedly. There's a red turtleneck. There you go. Yes, that's you. That's you. So why don't you introduce yourself and start us off?
Hi, everybody. My name is here, and we have time for this because this is really for you to come through, not to manage that this proposed project requires a change in the zoning. And we have these people on 4 stories, so we have to like consensually come to a new agreement about how we're going to do this plan as a community. And it's really striking to me that housing is not a tool, and that this is all about that state credit counting. I saw the donation to the housing trust. I think that would be a big donation, but this is an ideal site for housing. And I think if we look at the credit, we want to be right, they're not going any housing up, but they're also not going for last day people either. And I understand that some of them are trying to capitalize on that in the city in order to build our tax base if we want that $6. But if people only work to live here, the benefit from that in the next 20 years. And I just really think we need to reconsider this is a real school. This project is central to consider how we use this land and what we want to make difference for as we put that drive more than talk about housing. Otherwise, we leave it as it is. And we redevelop it. It's not great the way it is. Like,
All right, thank
Thank you. People can hear that.
Okay, so, I mean, there was a mouthful there. It's hard for me to repeat the question. There was a lot being said there. For folks in the back, this microphone's real good, but it maybe isn't great enough to hear you all the way back there. I'll try to hold it up to maybe get you a little bit better. But in terms of the question, there was one question in there particularly. Colin,
I think that housing is definitely something we've heard recently, but at the beginning, we've heard a lot about commercial tax base and how, and again, I want to distinguish, this is not like the life science lab space you're thinking about. If you go into one of these spaces like Form Energy, Commonwealth Fusion System, these are sort of R&D led industrial spaces that you're working with hardware, batteries, so they're not exactly life science spaces. And so we're definitely going to look into housing, but that does take time to study what is a good site, where would it be located, how high would it go, and all those will be considered. And this is great feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you.
all right, cool. Let's see, I saw you in the picture first, and then I see you, and then I noticed some hands. So let's get about 4 or 5 more, maybe more of a comment than a question. That's okay. Let's get your input in, and then we'll maybe see if some of the folks online can join us.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and just want to thank you for holding this meeting, JT. My name is Tom Hughes. I live on the corner of Summerville Avenue, beautiful property, but he loves Summerville. My question really comes down to the impact of the actual construction. We're talking about 16-story buildings, many of them. Summerville Avenue is the only way in and out. I'm guessing 100,000 truckloads full of stuff to come through to make the building, maybe more. Then you have parking, a parking ratio of 0.6 or whatever it was. How many parking spaces is that exactly? And how many people are going to be driving up and down Summerville Avenue every single day? And
Right. So for the folks at home who maybe couldn't hear that question, it was about how many dump trucks full of stuff is it going to take to tear this down and make a new project, and also exactly how many parking spaces and trips is the proposed development going to bring. Did I get that right? Yep. All right, great. Pat, do you have a seat? Good. All right.
So I think the dump truck question, I don't have an answer to, but the whole project is done in phases. So it won't be all done at once. Parking trucks. Well, we might not have, I think the place might be underwater. There's a lot of different conversations and see what we want to prioritize. We have a really good chance of making real impact with sustainability. And by no means, construction has impact, 100%. So we want to be able to study that more, knowing what the priority of the community are, and just we would take note of that and make sure we go over the construction mitigation plan and we can go over the details. But at this point, it's just a conceptual conversation. And we have done a little bit of study in terms of how it actually can be constructed. Obviously, those are very important details to make sure, whatever we build actually suits some of these tenants that are here, and how will we actually build that. We would happy to have that conversation about construction mitigation.
and the parking site.
And the parking side number, parking, favorite topic. It's obviously there will be generated trips, but I think we've got to look at transportation as a whole, mobility as a whole. So far, we're not able to work in the city on this point anything because we have not filed. Of course, they have a lot of other things they're working on. So we hope to have a more detailed conversation after we've been able to look at the numbers. We've done some numbers, but we really need the city to work with us on it. And we can't do that unless we file, just because we're not in the docket to work.
I said I was gonna go around. Please, I know not everybody can be as loud as I am, but if you can be a little bit louder so the folks at home can hear you, we're seeing a little bit in the chat that folks can't hear. So, Nick, I'm gonna hit you, and then Malcolm, I'm gonna hit you, and then, yes, you in the maroon. So, Nick, why don't you go for it?
Hi, I'm Nick Lyons. I live over 73 Marion Street. I'm also working at Summerville Media, which is within down there. We got an open house on October 11th. Feel free to stop by. Want to run a couple numbers by you. You have your master plan on your website. You're talking about job creation, 11,000 jobs, 6,000 of those are for construction alone. You have no plan set for the other 5,000 on your plan. You talk about $3.3 billion in funding. In terms of numbers, you have the social fund, which is 5 million. The housing funding is 27 million. The only talk about the housing funding is that you're going to build more housing. We do not have that kind of a housing problem. Our housing problem is that we don't have, it's all so expensive. We can't afford it here. And you're talking about expanding that? I'm sorry, but that's not a solution. When you talk about the access here, we're talking about tearing down the buildings, including the one that I just moved into. And what's the plan here? We talk about Aeronaut getting torn down and the builder and the rock climbing place getting torn down. But like, you didn't address that in your opening statement. You just said, oh yeah, I've heard that that's a thing. I've seen some flyers going up. What's actually going to happen to Aeronaut? What's actually going to happen to these places? There's no talk about what the actual plan is. When you have the quotes on your PowerPoint, they're all quotes about the city. We built this city. That's quotes that you say are from us. These are not people. I don't even know if those are real. You say 8,000 conversations. Where are the metrics on that? Where are the laws on that? Your master plan is nothing but a bunch of numbers and a bunch of quotes with no sources and no citations to it. I don't know what the actual plan here is. It's just you build and we just live with it.
All right. So I heard. So for the folks at home who maybe couldn't hear that, there was a critique about lack of detail in the master plan and a request for a little bit more detail. So
I think what you brought up is some of the issues that we're seeing in the citywide situation, also regional-wide situation. Housing prices is not just this city or just this neighborhood. We've so far heard a lot about at the beginning, it's more about the commercial development, how does that help with the commercial tax states to alleviate the residential displacement, part of that. And this is, of course, like I said in previous question, with the housing, is that a possibility? We're going to look into it. And this housing would actually part of the housing, the zoning is an overlay that would unlock the opportunity to build housing. But in fact, right now, as of right, we cannot, housing is not allowed. That's not allowed as of right.
Then why is it in the document?
Housing is not in the document.
You have a plan for $27 million for housing development. And
No,
it's on page 14 of your document.
It's a housing trust contribution. It's a housing trust contribution. I understand. Yeah.
So I hear the confusion there. One of the things that's in the zoning is for all commercial development, there is a certain amount of money that has to get set aside per square foot of commercial development that goes directly to the Summerville Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That's a pot of money that the city can then use to fund nonprofit developers to build 100% affordable housing.
So they're bragging about donating required funding?
That's you're not wrong. Yep, so I just want to be clear. And also, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't love it because it is better than nothing, but it's a very lossy version of how to transmit value, right? It says, here's a pile of money, please, Madam Mayor, give it to somebody who's going to build a good affordable housing. But I can tell you how hard it is to build affordable housing. We did an affordable housing overlay that allows many more stories for 100% affordable projects. There's exactly one of them. that it's happening. It's happening in Ward 2 on Webster Street, right across from Prospect Hill Academy. So it's hard, it's slow. And so I want to say, I really hear it and take to heart everybody who says, don't promise me housing later, please help deliver housing now as part of this. So I really appreciate that. All right, I said Malcolm, and then I said you, and then we're gonna get to Alex, and then we'll come back into the room. So Malcolm.
Sure. I think a lot of the housing stuff I was gonna say already got covered, so I'm gonna jump to the next one. I guess in brief introduction, I grew up about a quarter mile, living here on the other side of the railroad tracks. Grew up nearby across the railroad tracks, live in Ward 5, work here very close to this campus. I've been working in renewable energy and climate stuff for the past 14 years. I've been working in local climate advocacy projects for the last 10 years. And I think that I want to challenge a little bit of this commitment to the climate angle here. I hear a lot of these like climate tech phrases and things that sound like a lot of positive intention, but that don't really get backed up with a lot of firm commitments or accountability. And so that leaves projects like this open to a whole lot of greenwashing, both from the development process, but also from the tenants who come in and use this kind of place. You know, I think that the intention that I hear is very much in line with some of the stuff I'd want to see, you know, us working on. But you look at Greentown Labs, and who are their biggest supporters? Aramco, whose entire business plan is pulling up oil out of the ground and turning it into poison for all of us to breathe. They come here, they plant a tree, they greenwash their logo, and then they go to the other parts of the world and do exactly what they've always been doing. So what I would want to see is total absence of fossil fuel companies involved in this project and as tenants, zero emission standards for the buildings. I didn't see much about the emission standards into this, and I think that the transit issue, including the parking, is part of that. Sorry. So I think in that spirit of like getting some real commitments around this, would you commit to rejecting all fossil fuel based financing for this project? Making a legally binding commitment that fossil fuel companies could never be tenants here or investors here, and committing to zero emission standards for all the buildings that you intend to build.
All right. All right, thank you, Malcolm. For anybody who didn't hear, it was a question if Colin would commit to having zero fossil fuel investment, zero emissions in the building, and zero fossil fuel companies ever as tenants or investors here. Cool. Yeah. That's all you.
I happen to have to talk to some PhDs on it, you know, to make sure we're not just committed to something, because when we commit to something here, we mean it. And those are great questions with big and detailed notes and those. We will bring it to our consultant who deals with sustainability, talks about it. And in terms of Greentown Labs, you know, that's something we can talk about, but you know, I think we should facilitate a conversation and let them hear what your frustration are with them, and maybe there are some changes that can be made. I can't control what they do. And you know, I feel you, I hear you. No, we're gonna facilitate a conversation so that they can talk to Greentown.
I've talked to Greentown about this for many years. That's a no.
All right. I hear you, Nick. I didn't hear a yes there either. But I also have been a politician long enough to hear people who say yes to shit that you just want to hear. So I'm at least happy to have a conversation, have that be part of the conversation. All right. I said you, I'm sorry. I don't know your name.
Hi, Kristen. If I understand one of your diagrams, you have the courtyard, which is where the houses currently are, which I know you don't own right now. So is your plan to start the construction and bring the property prices down and then buy those lots to build the courtyard? Which diagram were you looking at?
Yeah.
That one with the blue, the courtyard?
Yeah, this diagram is of Arados for a quarter. There's no houses in this.
No, there's,
You can look at.
yeah, the blue one.
Yeah, the blue, the courtyard.
That's on the where Aaron are.
In one of your little diagrams, there's an arrow that points to the location that's talking about in the construction. It points to the little houses. Across, if you're across from the roof garden, right? So the roof garden is where Artisans was. So I could be understanding that wrong.
So that's what I'm Russ with the Summerville team. I think the plan is got a lot of detail in it. If people want to look at the plan, it's some office hours. I think right now we're redeveloping really 4 blocks that are the existing campus that, so that courtyard I think you're referring to would be the courtyard that, like the current courtyard that's out there now, the new courtyard would be in essentially the same place. So, and Aeronaut would be moving up one side of the courtyard, which would be the last building to be redeveloped, across the courtyard into a new building. So I think if there's some confusion, I'm happy to kind of work it out on that.
All right, cool. All right, I see. 1, 2, 3, 4. But first, let's see if this hybrid thing actually works. Please cross your fingers with me. Daniel, can you unmute Alex?
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Frieden. I live on Lake Street on the 4 blocks from the site. I work in Kendall Square in climate tech, and ironically a ag company. So what's being proposed here is 1,200 parking spots. As we all know in Summerville, we build for cars, we get cars. 0 parking is absolutely possible in Summerville. Councilor JT Scott and I were able to flip a project on Summerville Ave. Many of you have seen it in Union Square on its head from, I don't know, 100 parking spots to 0, and that project got built and people are renting it. This is a transit oriented zone. There's no reason we can't build for transit. The 1,200 parking spots is antithetical to everything that this project espouses and Summerville espouses, especially green tech and climate tech. It's very hard for me to take this seriously. And speaking of, one of the biggest challenges to getting people out of cars is these pre-tax benefits for already built parking. This is where we have to stop this. Love the community center, but and would like to see the city have more control over it. It's somewhat strange concept to me that we would have a privately owned community center. And on cost, one of the reasons many of these great businesses are here is because at one point, this fabulous fab district that we have was low cost. And so quite strange businesses were able to come in, whether it was Artisans Asylum, whether it was Aeronaut, which I know Asylum is no longer here. It's not clear how we can maintain these diversity of businesses if the cost goes through the roof. So I'd love to hear how the project team is managing this. And thank you.
All right. So let's get the answer. We can all hear you better than they can hear me. So yeah, who wants to answer some of those questions or thoughts?
I think the parking, it's tough one because we get asked by tenants for parking spaces for their employees. Even though some of them do live in Summerville, they have families, they want to drop their kids off at daycare. There are situations where parking is helpful. And elderly, disabled handicap spots, those are also very important spaces to provide EV charging. So I hear the comments and we'll gather up everybody's comments also on that subject. And we'll be able to come to.
Can I run a little experiment? Just how many people think we have traffic in Summerville? So we agree with you on that point. Like how many people think we have traffic? Too much car traffic. So I think what we've been really working with the project team is how to look at the reality of today, and that hearing from tenants and people who are here at the campus now, as well as how do we balance today's needs with future needs? I think part of the parking thing is how do we change people's mindsets, use other modes. So the project is committed to a fairly big demand management program that we want to get into details with you all at some point on. We've made a bunch of assumptions, and when the city's mobility division starts to engage those details, we have to work through all of them. We're wanting to get people out of their cars as a big part of it. Second thing is, part of the things we've been talking to, and a lot of the work that Magic and others have been doing here at the dojo is the north-south connection, like you're just getting across town. It's really difficult from a transit standpoint to do that. So we've really looked at putting funds into the project to try and open up an access connector, whether it's a shuttle or some other type of connection north-south into the city. And that goes to, you know, just hearing from tenants saying, well, I live in Winter Hill and I want to drive down, it's the easiest way I can get to work. So I think these are big questions we have about that we need all of your help to solve. The reality is, you know, right now, the zoning, the fabrication zoning requires parking here. So we are basically not proposing to build any more parking than what the current zoning allows. So all of the additional density you're actually asking for has zero parking associated.
You're asking to change the zoning.
Yeah. So I think we want to continue to work with you on like, how do we solve this mobility issue with all the sort of pushing and pulling that we're having.
Yeah, I don't think we have any magicians to make the green line work, but if anybody wants to volunteer for that, I'm open to it. So to the point that was just made, I really want to embrace it, right? What's being asked here is not, can you give us approval under something that already exists, right? We're being asked to engage in a conversation to write something entirely new. And one of the things that we can do in that process is change what parking minimums there are, change what parking maximums there are. And even for things that we cannot do through zoning, and if you ever want to get into the details of what we can and cannot legally require in zoning, please come to my office hours every Friday morning. But that's why the Union Square Neighborhood Council is such an important body in terms of crafting and creating community benefits agreements that are legally binding contracts that can be enforced in terms of what can and can't happen on the site going forward. So that's why I'm very happy to have you all from the Neighborhood Council up here front and center listening to this. Also, before I forget, I want to thank a couple people. Our State Senator Pat Jalen came out tonight. And by state senator, I also mean neighbor and my personal constituent here from Dane Street. So thanks for coming out to the neighborhood. Also, City Councilor at Large Jake Wilson is here. And I thought that City Councilor Jesse Klingon from up in Ward 4 is here online. So thanks for coming out. And I also see Lana Kretchen, our Ward 2 school committee person here. So is there anybody else with hand raised right now, Daniel, online?
Burnley, Councilor Burnley's online as
well. Oh, and Councilor Willie Burnley Jr. is online. Councilor at Large. Thanks, Willie. Holy cow, Jesse Klingon is entered the chat. Thank you. All right. So with nothing else online, Dan, is there any summary of chat that you want to offer here, or everybody's seen? All right, so let's go back to folks. All right, goes it? Josh, Camille, David, and then sorry, and Ethan, right? Oh yeah, Ethan. I'm sorry, man. So yes, Josh.
Just 2 points, and largely following up on the housing issue earlier. There are 5,000 employees called for the plan permanent positions. Those permanent positions are going to be at the high end of the income bracket. It's not going to be from around the community. It's mostly going to be transplants from outside the community, and there's no provisions for housing these people. We're going to have 5,000 coming into the community without a place to live. You're having $27 million without actually helping, without actually backing that up with any meaningful affirmative action to address housing. And then to your point, I think a huge issue with touting this as a climate issue, like I looked at the development plan, it didn't even cross my mind. You're not going to build a net zero development when you're touting climate that hard. That is just mind-boggling, and it's actually really doesn't difference. So I think at a minimum, what you need to do is have affirmative actions, to address housing, and then also ensure that these buildings do not emit gases. That'll be it.
Cool, so for folks in the back, who is basically saying, wanted a commitment for a net zero or zero emission building. But also acknowledging that this plan as drawn up, talks about 5,000 new jobs, that's 5,000 new people. Where can we make sure that we affirmatively have places for those 5,000 people to live? I do want to push back on one thing, because you said that all these jobs are going to be high-end jobs. They are absolutely not, right? The people that work to do food service in these buildings, the people that work to do maintenance, to do janitorial service, there are jobs all over the income bracket. And so for my money, I want to make sure that those people have homes in our community too. So if it was me standing in your place, I might be looking for a commitment for any residential component of this to include segregated, like actual income bracketed housing that is designated for folks who are potentially working in the space.
Right, you guys commit to reporting on how the expected stratification of the based on that 5,000.
Yeah, so the question was, can a developer show a projection of the income brackets stratification of the expected jobs?
On the housing thing, I think we've got to look at the numbers, we got to say, this is, something a lot more than just drawing and putting up some numbers and on a dime, so I think we've got to look at what's a perfect site and what's appropriate, what's that height. Obviously housing is different than commercial, so that transportation, that changes everything, but I think we will definitely study that. And then Julie's gonna talk a little bit about the net zero.
Sure, is this a mic?
This is a microphone and that's a spot everybody can see.
All right, cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Tedeschi. I'm a partner at Bureau Happold. We're a global advisory and engineering firm. I'm part of the Summernova development team. I've been on the team for a few years. My background is specifically in sustainability. I've been working with a number of different municipalities on ordinances, rezonings, etc., striving to move the needle on climate change and climate action. I also helped write the current version of the Stretch Energy Code that Summerville adopted to also move the needle as we move forward and seek to get to zero carbon by 2050. I wanted to address the question about the net zero conversation. The buildings have not been designed yet, so there is no commitment on the buildings yet because we're not there. That said, the current energy code requires a really high level of performance, both in the envelope, basically the passive house standards in the systems, and it sets a pathway alongside the goals that the city of Summerville has to get to carbon neutrality. A lot of that's based on, again, the performance of the building envelope, the performance of the building systems, and ultimately some offsets, because the lab buildings that are planned are too energy intense to have enough on-site renewables to offset their use on the site, which means that the owner and the team will be looking at opportunities to invest in renewable projects elsewhere to help offset the energy use on this site. And that's something that we've been doing with many of the other developers we're working with in Summerville and in other municipalities to understand what does a pathway to zero carbon look like for this project, for each of its buildings as the buildings come online as they're designed. Does that answer the question? Josh, right? Thanks.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I said Camille, Michelle, David, and then Ethan. And also, we've been here for a little bit over an hour. There is one bathroom behind the screen, but if you need it, I am told that if you go out those doors and walk down the ways, there is a red door and there are several bathrooms down there. All right, Camille.
Sure. Hey everybody, I'll try to be brief. Try is the operative word. I'm a resident of Tyler Street, right here across from all of the lovely businesses and offices you see down here. I am a DBP member, an aeronaut patron. I'm a math teacher with Boston Public Schools. I'm also the one who's responsible for all of the signage you've seen around you. I know I don't really look like an elephant, but I will try. Basically, I put up these signs in an effort because the only notice I received of this meeting as a resident, and I'm not trying to come at you, was one flyer in my mailbox on Thursday. One flyer that said, join JT Scott for a community meeting about like changes in your community. That's all it said. It had a picture of a tree. So I put these flyers in an effort to get community's attention, because I think we all deserve to know about the fact that this meeting was happening. And quite frankly, my name is Camille Stubby.
Nice to meet you.
You are the landlord that surrounds my house.
Yeah.
Sorry if I get emotional, but you haven't spoken to us once in this whole process. You haven't spoken to the residents. I went around and knocked on every resident's door this weekend and informed them of this meeting. You didn't know who you were. Why are you building this plan? We're putting up this plan without informing and speaking to the 49 homes that are in this square plan that your buildings would surround. And I'm trying now because I love this community deeply, and this community means so much to me. And when I read your plan on Friday morning, I wept. I didn't go to work, I wept, and I read all 498 pages. And I stood outside on that street corner, as many of these people in this room saw, and handed out flyers and informed the public about this meeting happening, which is something that Summernova has not done to the residents of this triangle. Okay. More serious points now. That's not what it's that are in this triangle, 49 homes. If you ask 2 to 3 people per home, or say there's 2 to 3 people per home, that's all like up to 150 residents minimum that live in this square of land right here. Your buildings would be 9 to 16 stories, covering 3 of 4 sides. 9 to 16 stories, covering 3 or 4 sides of this square with buildings. This whole square of residences is set in the northeast corner of those buildings, northeast corridor. What that means is the sun rises behind that 16-story building and sets behind that 12-story building. The sun barely makes it above. I sit on my porch almost every day. The sun barely makes it above the 1 and 3-story buildings we have across from us now. We would truly, it's not a question of, oh, one building is blocking the sunlight from this neighborhood. We are surrounded. Look at, you can see it here, literally my house is literally right there. You're surrounded by these buildings. This is an important fact for residents when we're considering changing the zoning codes that would impact the maximum and minimum floor heights. Currently, this is zoned for fabrication. Fabrication is 4 stories tall. These zoning changes, it's not even clear what they're changing to. I've seen the word innovation that is not in the zoning code. I've seen high rise. I've read the zoning document. It's very long, very confusing. Trying my best. But yeah, this would surround it. I do think that part of your plan makes sense. I think that the 3AB building and the community center, those seem like more like good fit for use in terms of zoning changes. 3AB is over next to Market Basket. There are not direct butters who would be right next to a 16-story building. The community center, I absolutely love and jump for joy at the idea of having that. My question is, why does it have to be at the expense of having 16-story office buildings to get one community center? Why is that the situation that we're I think that makes a lot of sense. We'd love to talk more about it. Okay, community. I'm sorry, it's gonna take a minute. This is a truly special place. There are thousands of people that come here every day. I watch them on my porch. Like it's amazing. So many faces. It's so special. There's amazing businesses like Airnaut, BBP, Bike Kitchen, Dojo. It's so cool. Even the company like CFS is literally across the street. I watch them all the time. They're great neighbors. They're doing their business in there. It's great. And it really saddens me that Rapid Properties does not see the value in the way that this community is currently set up. There are beautiful spaces that are currently in place, like the Aeronaut Courtyard, and this space right here that are asking the question, why are we knocking this all down? Like, why is that the answer to start from scratch when we have such beautiful, vibrant, and really important community spaces? I stood outside on that corner for like 4 hours on Friday and 6 hours on Saturday. And I heard so many people say the words, this is such a special place. This place is different. They can't knock down this place. This is something I heard countless times. I probably talked to 400 people on Friday and Saturday. And only 2 people were like, I think this is a good idea. So that's fine. Okay, yeah, and this is just a painful reminder of the power that corporations hold in our community. Over our community spaces. It keeps me up at night thinking about the fact that corporations are the ones who are affecting these spaces that mean so much to us. And that we don't have control over. And that we are not being informed about these changes. Whew, okay. So the first signal of these impacts we saw of corporations dictating these community spaces is Artisans Asylum leaving us in 2021. This was clearly due to a lease dispute, or at least in part due to a lease dispute over the term of the lease and the condition of the building. In 2021, 2023, get that number in your head, math teacher. So now they offered a 2-year lease in 2021 to Artisans Asylum, in which Artisans Asylum rejected. It is now 2023. I wonder why that lease was 2 years long. Just a question. Like why was that the term of the lease that was put forth? But yep. So Artisans Asylum left us, and regardless of the transition plan that Rapid Properties might be able to put forward, the loss of Artisans Asylum is clearly one of the first steps that we're seeing of the change in this community. We will lose the beautiful spaces that we already have in terms of the courtyard. We will surround residents with buildings, and we will not preserve any aspects of the current architecture of this space. It's beautiful in an ugly way in many spaces, and beautiful in a truly beautiful way as well. Okay, last point, I promise. This is specifically on zoning, and JT, I want to speak more directly to you about zoning. I know that you were involved in the creation of fabrication zoning in 2019, and I want to read a few key aspects of what fabrication zoning means at the core and as it was developed. It was to protect buildings that are key assets to the creative economy of Summerville, to maintain and enhance areas appropriate for buildings or activities commons to the arts and creative. And my favorite line from the zoning code that I read was quote unquote, a sense of place. This is from the fabrication zoning code. This is what these spaces were intended to create in Summerville. And quite frankly, the change in zoning to allow 16-story office buildings and complete knocking down of these beautiful community spaces that mean so much to so many people in this room really seems to go against the creation of this sense of place. I argue that these zoning changes are incompatible with the current use, especially in the triangle including, or the square including Tyler Street and Perpetuity Way, and that we deeply consider what changes we make here as we reconsider the zoning laws and the residents that are in this square of land. Thank you.
I absolutely understand. Before I ended up running for city council, I ended up in tears in a few meetings because it's terrible, right? What I will say, and I'm not going to speak to the stuff about to the developer, but what I will say is that the reason for this is that corporations are not driving this process, right? If this was about just a corporation wanting to come in and make a change to run over the neighborhood, then they would just file a zoning request, a zoning change amendment. Any property owner can do that in the city, it's their own property, right? The reason we're having this meeting is because I don't want it. Because I do want this to be a conversation that includes. The reason why there's 100 people in this room right now and 70, however many online, is because it's not the corporations that have power. It truly is the community.
Because she got us here though.
Yeah. You know, I encourage you to subscribe to my newsletter. Again, I put out the word everywhere I can. And I do work 3 jobs, right? So I'm sorry I didn't knock on your door personally, but I'm doing my best here, buddy. All right. Sure. I do want to make sure I get to Michelle and to David and to Ethan, but they kind of come to you after that.
Yeah.
All right, great. Before I move on to those folks, Magic or Colin, did you want to say anything to that, or do you just want to hold on to that person?
I have my notes.
I would love your notes.
All right.
And yes, thank you, thank you. I feel your pain and I understand. I'm so grateful for you to share this, because this is what the space is built for, to share it. I think there's a lot for us to work on, a lot of us to digest. And it's not just you, but also the wider community that are here on a Monday night. So I do appreciate that. Just know, like what JT was saying, that this is a process. We're not going to just build this tomorrow, and we'd love your input on how do we scale without losing that soul? And that's one of the things that a lot of people have mentioned. How do we scale without losing the soul? Because we don't want Kendall Square. We don't want Seaport. That's just big box, retail that comes in. But this is such a unique place, and that's what we've kind of added more since 5 years ago. We added more to this. We added the outdoor. If you remember the courtyard, that was a loading dock for storage. And I was like, wait, this is a missed opportunity. There is so much soul in this community. So we work with some of the residents, some of the business owners. What would you want to see? An outdoor courtyard. So noted, note taken. We would take that with the team, and I think this is a great time to give us your input, and this is very important. So let's have a conversation now. Thank you.
All right. All right, Michelle, go for it.
So, hi, my name is Michelle Hanson. I am the co-chair of the Youth. I am the co-chair of the Youth for Neighborhood Council. Neighborhood Council has not taken a position on this project as of yet. It's very hard to, come after this very passionate plea, but it has been the plea of people whose families have lived here for over 100 years, which are the two people sitting next to me and myself, and probably some other people here. So this has been going on for a very long time, much longer than the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 35, 40 years. A lot of this stuff about we're talking about housing. First of all, I want to ask a question. I'm right that the overlay does not preclude any housing. And so what we need to do is turn to the city and say 20% is not going to get us where we need to be. 20% affordable is not enough. And in every new development, we need to have at least 50% affordable and or workforce housing. Affordable and or workforce housing at a minimum 50%. So the bottom line is that we're not going to build our way out with 20. We need at least 50, and people need to understand that we have to continue to have conversations about these things, and we're weighing out what's going on here, which we need jobs and we need industry, but we also need that people have places to live. Our families, our friends have been pushed out for years, and I feel your pain. I've been feeling it for a very long time, but we have to come up with practical and decisions and solutions. And at the very least, I will say that Summerville is willing to listen. And we have dealt with a lot of developers, and this is my own personal opinion, that it's the first time I've been in a room with developers who actually this is what we want. So, but again, the Youth Neighborhood Council has not taken a position, and we want 50% affordable and or workforce housing in all new development. Thank you.
Awesome. I know y'all didn't all hear that in the back because I think the applause would have been louder, but the Michelle Hanson is part of a multi-generational family here in Summerville, is on the neighborhood council when she said very clearly the neighborhood council has not taken a position on this proposal, but that they are very invested in working on making sure that it has at least 50% affordable housing and that it balances the different demands and struggles that the neighborhood has. And that's coming from somebody from a perspective whose family has been here for 5 generations?
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6 generations. Who's counting?
Yeah.
All right. 2 of them are sitting right here. So thank you for that, Michelle. And I'm going to go ahead and once again reiterate the pitch for the Union Square Neighborhood Council, where a lot of these conversations are happening in a very rich way.
Please go to Union Square neighborhoodcouncil.com and or come to our meetings that are here next Monday, every other week. We have meetings from 7 to 9 in this building, and please come and
tell us what you want and what you need, and we'll find out.
Right, so that's unionsquareneighborhoodcouncil.com. .com. And they have meetings every other Monday, live and in person and also hybrid. And Daniel, can you put that link in the chat for folks? Great, awesome.
And that'll be following the office hours that Summernova's having, right?
Yes, thank you. Tori is former co-chair. Tori is reminding that meeting happens actually directly following the office hours that Rafi Properties is hosting to answer questions and to get input on this too. So I said David, and then I said Ethan, and then I'm going back up to you. I have not forgotten you, I promise. All right, David.
I'll be brief. And thanks, Camille, for that incredible speech. This is really a magical place. And, everybody approaches it from different angles. Sitting out there and out in the summer's day, drinking beer, listening to music. That's why we live. And that's why we got a zoning law that was changed to protect the space. They want to build these buildings which are 4 times as high as the permissible zoning. They're casting a shadow on everything over its way on the other side of the tracks. It's too large. They mean well, and we wish them, but not with a construction that would change the ethos of this place entirely. We want it to continue to grow and to be good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. David lives right around the corner, so I mean, right, I know how this, yeah. I do want to say about the fab zoning, you're right. The reason the fab zoning exists is because I wrote it back in 2019. So I am fully invested in it. And part of what I said at the time is that new businesses need old buildings, right? We need spaces. I mean, honestly, a lot of us exist in this city. It feels like we're the flowers that grow in the cracks in the side, right? I want to make sure that we continue to have the spaces where we can exist. And the question is, what makes it worth it? Is there anything that makes it worth it for us to consider more? And that's an open question, and I don't think we're going to get an answer to it tonight. But that's the question I'm coming to this with: is there something that can be delivered to the community that's worth it to us to consider more than the 4 stories and 80 feet of buildings that they can currently build here without asking anybody's permission? So I appreciate that. All right, Ethan, I said you, and then I'm sorry I didn't get your name up there, but I'm coming back. Alice? Alex. All right, Ethan.
Ethan Rousseau, I too have cried while speaking to a room full of people. We have that in common. I am a small business owner. I own a recording studio across the street from what would be 3B or 3A. And the whole building is a fabrication building that exemplifies the spirit of ACE, which is Arts and Creative Enterprise Use, as defined by Summerville rules. And I just want to also, I'm a volunteer with the States Here Coalition. We organized to prevent arts and cultural displacement in Boston. Happy to talk to anybody about any of this stuff, fabrication rules, zoning, ACE rules, all that stuff. What I want to bring up is a piece in your PDF where the claim is that while the fabrication district has contributed to the city's economy, it was written to preserve an area for manufacturing and fabrication uses. That's not true. These industries have evolved and the policy no longer works for their purpose. Based on the person not being true, that can't be true. Like my friend in front here, who kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, I'm going to read some of the intent, which is totally cool in support. The intent as written in the FAB rules, section 2, intent, A, to implement the objectives of the comprehensive plan of the city of Summerville related to the arts and creative economy. Protect buildings that are key assets to the creative economy of Summerville residential conversion, preserve existing workspace and retain incubator space for startup entry and mid-level business. A lot of those might have dropped away. To create, maintain, and enhance areas appropriate for small and moderate scale single and multi-use buildings. Activities common to the arts and creative economy, and supporting commercial activities and a variety of employment opportunities in the arts and creative enterprises. The plan you have right now calls for allowing 2 million square feet of new development. And yet you've got 4,000 square feet of art studios allocated. In the pie chart, it actually says creative enterprise, it doesn't say arts in the chart. But by the rules, new development, commercial, provides 5 to 10% arts and creative enterprise use. And I know that the current ACE rules have some loopholes in them that some like to exploit, but I think that when you want to win points with the community, you try not to exploit those loopholes. So why, when you would probably be called to provide 100,000 to 200,000 square feet of ACE space, is there only 4,000 square feet of artist studio? And on top of that, as final points, the FAB district is incredibly important to the community. And if we set a precedent where people can just throw money around and just do whatever they want with the FAB zonings, buildings that house all the artists, which are all the artists pretty much are in FAB zone buildings right now. They're actually, a lot of them should be historically preserved because they're from the late 1800s. Not a lot of that. But I mean, who's to say that somebody's gonna come along, find out, oh, these guys just got to do whatever they want because they just had enough money to throw around. We're gonna throw 5.5 at social impact. Great, should be more. We're gonna throw 30 million at affordable, housing. Should be more. And then we're gonna build our 16 stories and we're gonna do whatever, and we're gonna get 4,000. That's like enough for like 15 artists. That's nothing. Anyway.
Thank you, Ethan, and you're right, the piano building unit is absolutely the epitome of why FAB got created and why it's important to preserve those spaces, so I appreciate that. I also, you brought up something really that I want to make sure everybody in the room knows about, which is that there are some loopholes in the FAB district that I would like to close. Right now the Arts Council has been working with a whole lot of artists in Summerville about trying to come up with a way to close those loopholes. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to get those zoning changes before the city council, before the end of the year happens. However, I also want to let you know that I have heard from the mayor's office that she is interested in also taking some of the existing FAB districts and changing them into something called the Innovation District. Now, I just got a draft of this late last week. And I am trying to host a neighborhood meeting about those proposed changes, hopefully very early in October. So again, please come to my office hours, subscribe to my newsletter, because I've told the mayor, I've told the economic development department, planning department, that I don't want the first time me or any of my neighbors to hear about this to be when it lands on the city council as a request from the mayor's office. So if you are concerned about that district, and I know all of us here are, please do stay tuned, and because this is not the only attempt to change that district that's out there. Okay, I said I was going to you, Alex, and then I'm going to check to see if there's any more hands raised online. So if you want to raise your hand online, please, this is your time. Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I live on Evelyn Street around the corner here with one of my neighbors. I'm curious about, I guess, like the actual, in specific terms, like what agency we have and on what timeline to like vote for the zoning change, or like redirect this plan, or hold it entirely as residents, or even on like neighborhood council. So I'm looking for, I guess, like specificity in terms of agency and timeline.
Yeah, that's a great question. Right, that's a great question. The question was about specificity, about what agency is there for us as neighbors, and what's the timeline, what's the process. So let me start with, that's why we're doing this now. And let me go to the end, let's say the end, that there is a building. If that building required a zoning change, what would we have to do? What would have to happen between that building actually going into the ground and where we are? So working backwards, anybody who wants to build something would need to get their building permits. There'd be a whole inspectional services, building code review. That's where the new stretch specialized energy code that requires fully electrified buildings and net zero envelopes and all that goes into play. But before it could get to that stage, it would have to go through an entire engineering and environmental impact about the water, stormwater runoffs and all those things to make sure that it meets the laws and codes that we've set up in the city. And before it would get to that, if every individual building that would go up would have to go through something called site plan approval. That is a zoning required process where they have to present to the neighborhood. There are 2 neighborhood meetings in that process to get neighborhood feedback about that particular, like call it 3A. Building 3A would have to go through its own site plan approval, where it would come to the neighborhood with a proposal. There would be neighborhood feedback. Member of the planning, we have somebody from the planning department here tonight, actually. But there was the planning department feedback on that. It would go to something called the Urban Design Commission, which is an appointed group of architectural experts and landscape designers who would provide feedback on it. It would come back to the neighborhood for a second neighborhood meeting, and then it would go to the planning board and then through a whole planning department review and recommendation, and then it would be conditioned by the city for exactly what that building can end up being. And that would have to happen for each individual building, 1 through 3B. But before you could get to that, it would require something called a master plan special permit process, which is basically to say, for the entire area that's being considered, where are the streets? Where are the alleyways? Where are the courtyards? Where are the civic spaces? Where are, what are the individual buildings projected to be and constrained to be by this master plan? And that master plan special permit process also requires, I think, 2 neighborhood meetings, maybe that was just 1, and requires public hearing before the planning board, which is again another part where everybody gets their 2 minutes to express their concerns. The planning board is an appointed group that appointed by the mayor that gets to condition the project and say for neighborhood impact, for the things that concerns the community. Maybe the proposal was decent, but it didn't hit the specific concerns they heard, and so they want to condition the project to constrain it even further. But before you could get to that process of a master plan special permit, you would have to get through a zoning change to even enable something like this. Because right now, as it stands, they could just do 4-story buildings. They wouldn't have to ask a whole lot of questions to get there. But to do the scope of what they're talking about, they would need a zoning amendment to even create a compliant zoning for this section that would allow them to go through the master plan, special permit, and site plan approval processes. A zoning amendment is a legislative process. It's a law. And it's actually a law that's very hard to pass. It requires a supermajority. So in Summerville, there are 11 people on the city council. Councilor JT Scott is smiling at me as I hit a civics lesson. So in Summerville, there are 11 city councilors. I am your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I just cover Ward 2. 12,000 of us crammed into a half square mile. There's 6 others of those and 4 at large that cover the whole city like Jay. I keep pointing at Jake so you can talk to what happens. And it requires 8 of those city councilors to say, yes, I have heard this request, and I'm going to vote to say this is the change that gets made. And before they vote to make that change, we vote to make that change, we can amend it. And that process itself, that zoning amendment, requires that it be presented, that there be a joint hearing of the city council's land use committee and the appointed planning board to hear it, to listen to as many hours of public testimony as necessary, and then to deliberate on it like we deliberate on any other law, and tweak it and make modifications based on what we've heard, or just say, you know what, it's not worth it. Our constituents hate this. We're going to vote against it. And so before it gets to that stage, before it gets introduced as a potential amendment, it goes through this process. And the only reason this process is because back in 2017, I promised to have this kind of process because your agency just matters to me more than anything else in the world. And I can guarantee you that if there is if it's a shitty plan, if it's a terrible plan, if it's clear that everybody in the room hates that plan, I think they know better than to bring something that's gonna just be dead on arrival. So hopefully, that's why I say, the agency starts here.
Can you commit to writing that out in your blog?
I already did.
Oh.
It's on there from 2017. I'll send you a link.
Yeah. And can you like continue to like have that specifically for this process and the specific dates of all those meetings, like whenever anything's filed, like in the future?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Making sure.
That's how I roll. All right. I'm sorry. So that was my loop around. Was there anybody online? No? All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna go, Derek.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. One person raised their hand. One person raised their hand. Alex Giller.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Alex Giller. I'm a local business owner in Summerville. Sat through a bunch of these meetings for Union Square. I've sat through them for Assembly as well. And I think what kind of scares me with all these projects, I mean, each one's a little different, but it seems like what we enjoy and what brought everyone to Summerville is kind of the creativity and the culture that it kind of built Summerville up over the years. And I mean, to see something like this come in and kind of strip away what is, something that in particular you guys enjoy in the neighborhood, it's just, what is Summerville kind of turning into? I mean, it's Summerville's landlords used to be the person who lived, upstairs or downstairs from you in the 2-family house. And now it seems to be kind of all these large corporations coming in and establishing themselves and kind of getting a red carpet treatment, being able to change zoning how they want as long as they donate the right amount to the certain fund within the city. So I mean, it's just kind of like 16 stories abutting a residential neighborhood is nuts. They're doing it like, I personally am direct affected over Webster Ave. They're trying to build 20 stories directly across the street from us. And kind of going back to the whole not seeing the sun. I mean, they did studies, but since there's only 4 houses on our street, there wasn't enough residential pushback. And I like seeing how many people are here at this meeting. I think collectively you guys can have a strong voice in order to get something that makes sense for everybody. One other thing that I'd like to just say quickly, I know parking and I know cars is very much a hot button topic. A lot of people don't want to be able to be planning for parking. But the one thing that I will say is that access to this area is very limited, especially when it comes to public transportation. You have a crosshatch of 2 different bus routes that there may be more than 2, but there's 2 different ways that buses can approach this area. There's no public transportation in terms of the T yet without walking a bit of a distance, which isn't horrendous. But to say that 100% of these new jobs, I think they said 5,000 workers, it's not practical. Right now, 54% of all Summerville residents drive. And then you have all the people that are north of the city that also drive into the city. So I think in order to not have, in order to limit, as much as we want these new 5,000 people coming in and being part of the community, right now, I think we can all agree there isn't enough housing for that to begin with. So then to limit your employment pool only from people south of the city, because all the transportation only comes from Boston and goes north, it doesn't really come from north of the city going south yet. I think we need to find some alternatives in order to be able to gain access to this area, especially when it comes to construction. Like right now, I have tractor trailers lined up in front of my house at Webster Ave to do the project that's at 64 Webster Ave. And it's miserable. So I can't imagine with how tight of a space that's going to be transportation wise. There needs to be a solid plan in order to minimize the effect on everybody here. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, so I'm gonna go right to left this time. I'm gonna go left to right the whole time. So I'm gonna start with Jana, then Mia, and then, I'm sorry, I can't see your name right there. And then Derek, and then Grant. So Jana.
Thanks.
My name's Jana, I am a neighbor, I live on Summerville Avenue, and, one of the things that, I have, 30 years of experience in environmental public health. I worked in the Department of Public Health and retired, but I was an assistant commissioner. And I did look up kind of information about the environmental health impacts of the proposal. Now it's the proposal because we looked at your master plan, and I understand some of that's under negotiation, but it's really all we have to operate from is what's been proposed. It is an environmental justice neighborhood. Also Summerville has higher than the state average, over 110% of the state average of pediatric asthma hospitalization, including this neighborhood. And the impact of this type of 10-year staged construction, the trucks, the blasting from the underground parking garage, all of the kind of noise impacts to the community, the exhaust impacts for the construction itself, the construction dust, the trucks coming in and out, all that stuff will have a substantial negative impact on the health of the people who live here. And so there are some great things about it. You know, we love the idea of the community center. We love green space. All of those things are nice. But for the next 10 years, the people who live here will be substantially negatively impacted and their direct health. And so I just want to flag that. It really isn't a question. The data are available online. So I just want to make sure that people understand that it's not just, you know, what will be here eventually, but what will grow through to get it really harms the state.
Right, thank you for that, Jana. And DBH represent my other day job is at DBH. So, so the comment was really about the environmental health impacts of construction like that. And I can say that that's something that's absolutely true and something that I think should be brought into the conversation about mitigation. You know, we just recently, as a city, had to completely renovate, recondition, rehabilitate Conway Park. And that was thousands of dump trucks worth of dirt having to get dug out. It was under direct EPA monitoring the whole way along. So having a mitigation plan that's incorporating this for anything that would happen is definitely something I think that would be of interest to the neighborhood council and also to the city, honestly. So I appreciate you bringing that into it. All right. Sure.
Is the 10-year timeline accurate for how long this proposal will take?
I don't know, man. Down in Union Square, it's for those of y'all who don't know, I'm the little purple house next to Juliet. So it feels like I've been living through it for 10 years already. What's your timeline?
That is the goal, but of course, like you said, it's 10 years time, so it's, you know, a lot to change. Projects, the size could change. So, but based on what we propose, that would be the timeline.
Okay. All right. So I did just hear that the live interpretation is probably going to end at 9. For anybody on Zoom who is still needing interpretation, please. Best we have is the automated captioning interpretation. That's what I'm told. All right, Jenny's shaking her head. So Jenny, you're in charge of it. All right. Cool. So did that answer your question? All right, excellent. I'm sorry, John. Who did I have after you? I had you in the back, and then some people in front. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Colin. I live in the corner of Dane and Tyler, little pump house.
We have a Spanish speaker here, so.
Hey, one thing I'll acknowledge is you own the land, you bought the land, and I also am very appreciative of the improvements that you've made. You have brought art into the space. You have made Aeronaut better. You have made the alleys for the market basket a much safer place to walk as you are trying to transition there. As you think about this proposed plan, we can speak here for a long time. And so I won't belabor the height of the buildings, which is very real to where my house is located. But being aware of the residents and the impact on the residents as you build, thinking about the hours in which that construction will take place, I assume you're going to build either way.
It's just kind of a matter of how high. And thinking about how do you have as small of an impact on the community when you do that, it's just something that I would appreciate as somebody who is across the street from you. And we can really appreciate the investment that you're making into the new community and the space. It is really cool. I think it's cool to see the area get more developed in a lot of different ways. Pro market being like down the street, this is much bigger than that. But the courtyard that you're making is really cool. The walk through is really cool. I think there are ways in which we can make it really equitable for the community and you as a business owner trying to make a profit, while not kind of bearing the rest at the same time. So this is the kind of chance for me to act. If you think about all of that, we try to have a lesser impact either way, because you're a developer, you develop buildings. And so I appreciate from one column to another. So I'll give you I appreciate you listening here and you physically being here, as opposed to just sending your team today. I want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Mia, I had you next, right?
I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to participate in this process as what was the things that I think like wondering, so the current thing, what that would be, and really great for this project.
Okay. Well, I know that might have been hard to hear at home. It was hard for me to hear it, but what I heard was an appreciation of what they said about youth and community and safety, and you expressing your love of bouldering project, how you found safety and community there, and you're asking about how the project is proposed to impact that and its existence. Cool. I have no idea.
So Colin asked the team a really hard question. How do we keep all the tenants here? So I think if you look at this sort of way we phase the project, is very much having gone through a lot of conversations around leases, and how to move people and how to keep businesses here, how to ideally improve businesses. Because these are all tenants that are running a business and have employees and want to do good as well. So our hope is that we can continue that dialogue with them. And as these buildings get more and more designed and their business plans get more and more real, that eventually we can make spaces for them that are ideally better than they are today. I think that's sort of a bold statement, but that's our goal. And I think, the bouldering project, that was an essential piece of the puzzle. It's a very, very odd space. And I think something we challenged our design team at this early stage is how do we make it better? And I think it's very important to us that we continue to work with the community that's here, especially the businesses that really are invested in this place being a success, to make sure it's even more of a success for the future. So just to clarify that, that's sort of the not clear, but there's a lot of sort of unanswered questions about how all those businesses come together, what they need in the future, but we're committed to continuing this.
All right, cool. After Mia, I saw it was gonna be, I'm gonna hit these two, right. Go for it, man.
Hi, my name is Derek, PM pronoun. Most of my comments are for y'all, and first, thank you for spending your whole week being out here. I wanted to comment about the mistakes of this, the permanence of the decision, the asymmetry of our positions in this relationship, and the power dynamics. And you can lead this with an apology for Colin, because I know you to be generally a very good person, but how good you are as a person simply shouldn't factor into our decision making, because this decision outlasts you and me and everyone in this room. These buildings are 100+ years old, so will the building be built. So when you talk about the current challenges about building parking-free buildings, I don't care, because you're talking about building parking that's going to be here for 100+ years. When we don't need it anymore, and when the only way to get to a point where we don't have that parking is to stop building. When you make a promise to have a community center with a 5-year budget, I don't know why I should care, because what we need is a permanent community center owned by a municipality. The thing here isn't a decision that we're making based on relationship we have to do in the span of our lives or in this room or this year. But something that we have to acknowledge is going to be the best thing for this space and the next generation of people who live here. Some of which I hope have some relation to, like, and to make sure it's a fruitful place. And I feel like these comments about like be gentle with construction and please consider these details. They threaten to slightly undermine some of the more compelling arguments I've heard today about like this is really just blanket a forfeit. And I don't know how I feel about those. I'm hearing these for the first time, but I just want to remind people that those comments and that calling comments about the back space, like really good question, just being those in this design. And again, with an apology to Colin, JT talked about the process by which these things get through. A process that in many steps along the way are decisions made by people appointed by the mayor. The mayor that Colin has made max out donations to a couple times, one of which had to be returned after months of pressure for our mayor to return money, despite a commitment not to take money from the developers. Colin has made a $500 donation for our mayor as early as January. So when you think about the decisions in those rooms, there are favoritism. This is not a level. So finally, I want to make people aware of the door in the face methodology. This is a gigantic project. They will almost certainly turn around with a much smaller project and return this thing back. A much smaller project that if they had started with that, we would have rallied and pushed against that. So just don't get yourself overwhelmed by the fact that they're going to come back with something gentler and feel like, they listened to us. Really focus on what is it that we want to have here for the next 100+ years, beyond Colin, beyond me, beyond JT and our current mayor. Whether that's parking, whether that's giant shadows, whether that's up tech, whatever that is, or whether it's going to be the arts, an approachable, inexpensive space for the business.
Okay, again, I'll get there. First, I just want to thank Derek for that, and for that perspective of what to me sounds like stewardship, right? We do have a responsibility. We are stewards of our neighborhood, and hopefully for, I would love it if I could have 6 generations in this neighborhood too. And you're right, there is an unlevel playing field, and the point of most leverage is at this point. And before it actually becomes a zoning change, because that is the highest hurdle to overcome, and it involves people who were not appointed by the mayor, the city council. And at least speaking for this city councilor who has never taken a donation from a real estate developer come on his board. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the room. Grant, and then we're going to get to Jen online. Go Grant.
Hi, my name is Grant. I am new here. I live on Columbus Avenue. I am a research assistant and meeting organizer at Harvard. And I think I have some big points I want to bring up. First of all, Summerville as a community is around almost one half of Summerville residents are housing burden, which means they spend over 30% of their income on rent. Almost a quarter are severely housing burden, which means they spend over 50% of their income on rent. The cost of living in this place is really high. I moved here and I found what I thought was a very cheap place, and I'm quickly realizing I'm just getting stressed. We would need to see any project like that has commitments that's not going to impact the cost of living, especially for tenants living there. So have you done any kind of research proposal or analysis to show what the impact is on cost of living? Secondly, as an organization that is talking about how much you care about equity and environment and housing, it seems like you're only really giving the bare minimum. Flexing the 30 million and saying that acting like this is a big generous offer when it's just a legally required amount, it's not being generous, that is doing your part. And so if I am to support this thing, I would need to see that you give more than your fair share. If you really care about this community, you should be doing that. On top of that, if you care about making this a more walkable city, a less car reliant city, why don't you give more to the public transit system that's in desperate need of more money? I'm sure the city government would love to have some more funding for that, especially for an organization as committed to environmental repair and support, as you said. And lastly, I'm just going to say that it feels disingenuous for you to talk about all these values when every time someone here asks you like a pretty specific question about how is this going to affect rent, how is this going to affect rent, how is this going to affect my community, how is this going to affect the environment, are you going to have the buildings be carbon neutral, are you going to take money from developed from oil companies? You say, we don't really know, we're gonna have to keep researching. If you've been having all the conversations you've been having, I feel like these should have come up earlier. You should have more of a game plan about them. You don't need to be just perfect. We know that, this takes a lot of time, but there needs to be more than just, we're gonna get back to you. Because this seems like a plan that's more than just in its first stages. It seems like it's been several years in the making. We should have more answers to that. So I guess I would ask, first of all, can you commit to providing more resources to our community, especially for housing, especially for our transit system? And can you explain to us why, I guess, you don't have more of these answers, these questions we've asked answered right?
I think those are great points, and this is why we're having this conversation to address the issues that we haven't heard before. And genuinely, we have 4 tonight, right? So, we would love to really put together some thought into it and think about. And I want to clarify that we are doing more than what we're legally required. The $30 million is completely not part of the as of right proposal. And it's to not just throw money at it, but actually build a community center. And so just want to clarify. And I think I think some of our consultants have done some economic research on what are the economic impact on housing, et cetera, income level, or the job opportunities that some of the residents feel get access to. There's a mixture of those data that we could share. We'll have to share that with you. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I was just checking in on the interpretation piece of it to see if we still have folks here to do that. We are going to go to Jen. I did want to just, there was something really good that got brought up there, which is about the investment in the MBTA. I gotta be honest with you, the city doesn't do that. So that would be a state contribution. I'm open to that being part of the conversation too. Also, this was something that got mentioned a couple times about the community center and who owns the community center. I'm not going to speak for the neighborhood council community center working group, but there is a group of people that have been working on this for a very long time. I gotta say, if our mayor was interested in building a community center, there would have been one by now. So I think there is a malinvestment problem there, and quite frankly, one of my biggest frustrations, somebody mentioned the park, Alex Frieden mentioned the park, that we actually got built as part of the negotiation with the developer. The neighbors demanded it. They demanded a parking-free building. They demanded a public park on the back third of the lot that brought green space to the neighborhood that desperately needed it. And they got it negotiated that it would be deeded to the city as a public park. And after we got it built, and after we got that building just the way the neighborhood wanted it, and the developer went to hand that parcel to the city as a public park, the mayor said, no, thank you. So I just want to say there might be a third way. There might be a path where a neighborhood council served or a new nonprofit that operates it as an independent public facility is one that actually might be more enduringly open to the public. So that's, I'm just putting it out there. I know I probably shouldn't say distrust the government, but I distrust the government. Okay, right. Jen, I want to get to you.
Hey, I wasn't planning on speaking because I'm a little tired, so excuse me if I'm a little scattered, but I'd like to thank everybody for talking. Everybody's made so many good points, in particular, the person who just spoke like 2 people ago who talked about looking 100 years into the future. And I just wanted to bring the conversation also back a little bit to the past and to talk about how much harm Summernova Rafi Properties has already caused to this community by already displacing a number of arts communities in the very property, in the area that we're talking about, including Artisans Asylum, including a photographer. I can't remember his name, but he was separate from Artisans Asylum, including the Aerial Arts organization whose name I can't remember because so many places are gone now. And I'd really like for Summernova to be a little bit more real about what they've done already and to make up for that when they go back to their proposal and start rewriting it based on everybody's great feedback tonight. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jen. Nice good points.
So you change the ball different things that we see done for this to be improved. They didn't fully answer her question or our question of how long that process would take. So say everything you said on the meeting started now, today. How, like, is it a year before you can break ground, 2 years before you can break ground, 6 months? Like, what's that actual timeline? And then, I guess similarly, if you weren't going to do the 6, because I'm assuming the 4 stories would take less time. So when would that? How long would it take from the proposal after the breaking ground to start having?
Sure. Sure. So the question for anybody who didn't hear at home was, with all those steps I outlined earlier, with the civics lesson, how long would that actually feasibly take? I will say that for projects that have existing zoning that establishes the whole master plan special permit area process, that process takes years. Like, so in Boynton Yards right now, they have a Boynton Yards overlay zoning that that has the same kind of master plan special permit process. That was where new street grids got laid out. There's 2 acres of required public park space in the middle of it. There's a whole new streetscape. And that process, Lord, from how long was it? It was, I think it was 3 years from the time that zoning was available to the time when the first building started going into the ground. And it's not done yet. And that's just one of, I think, 6 buildings. 5 or 6, yes. Yeah, about 6 buildings that are in that area. This is 5 buildings, you know, roughly, I guess, the same kind of scale. And so from the time that even zoning allowed it to proceed forward, it would be 3+ years to actually start getting into the ground, buildings and getting them done. How long it takes to get to a zoning change that would enable that is, it's wide open. The wheels of the city council turn slowly, let me tell you. Jake, are you on land use? No. How long would you estimate a process like that would take?
I mean, 3 to 4 years typically. That's.
I mean,
you have more experience than I do. 3-year time frame seems reasonable.
our last zoning overhaul took 7 years. The Boynton Yards overlay took about a year and a half, 2 years, I want to say. So, yeah, I mean, the gears turn. This is not a horse race to, you know, if there's a deadline here. And that's part of why these kind of neighborhood meetings are so important. Because once you're right, once it gets in, the wheels just start turning and it feel like the crank just runs everything within the gears. So that's why I want to make space for these conversations. Does that answer the question?
It does. I just hope that you see like how many, like I would argue like you personally got probably 90% of the people to this meeting. So I just want you to see how important this area is, and like what percentage of your real estate is actually built? Like how many empty buildings do you have? How many empty tenants do you have?
Summerville Media Center, which we're in discussion, will be 100%.
And after how long there have been empty spaces?
After that,
I guess, sorry, before, like how long have you had unfilled tenants during the pandemic?
actually, we saw this during the pandemic, but it's, we can't do this type of experiments. We've been signing leases for over.
You've been at 100% capacity?
No, not 100%, about 95, consistent. Yeah.
I mean, where we're standing right now, you just become like me, right? The teacher.
Right, and then they relocated over there, 24th Main Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, architectural.
No, John Roberts was here.
Yeah. Well, the architecture was here. Yeah.
Good. So I do want to acknowledge that, yes, I do, you're on my name, and I saw you around. I think I met you at another meeting, right?
No.
No, okay, my bad. Actually, when Carlos first moved to town, that's actually, you came to a neighborhood meeting about a much smaller development. I think the first time, that's not even the first time you came. So this is, I mean, it's to have these kind of conversations. I absolutely, the only reason I'm in this job is because I saw my neighbors getting run over with the whole skyscraper Union Square project, so I'm not gonna forget you, that's good. All right, I'm sorry. In the back, so I'm gonna go all the way in the back, and then I'm gonna come to you, and then I go to Ann. And then Linda. All right, sure, Linda's gonna get in. All right, so first, all the way back, no, that's you, no, it's you. I'm sorry, get to your name.
I looked on that, trying to figure out how tall these buildings were, and it was very difficult to see, and we're trying to hide that. There's no elevation, and then there's no big lifting to it. Or it's not rated. And I was wondering if you could add that.
So the request, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna repeat it for folks at home for the recording. The request was to have information about the heights of the various proposed buildings added, so it's easy to see what that is. Great, awesome. So it was coming over to you next, and then to Ann, and then I see Bill and one other person online. We'll go to them after Ann. So you're up.
So this is my question for missing information I'm missing. Is there a possibility of a green line extension in this area? Because this scale of project would make a lot more sense to me if there were a two-stop there.
Oh, man, now you're speaking my language. Okay, so, true story, from here, we are almost exactly 1 mile to Porter Square South. We are about 0.8 miles from the Union Square South, if it was open. And what that does is actually puts this little pocket in a weird little transit desert, at least as far as the Summerville zoning code counts things, which is you're within a half mile or a quarter mile. Of the transit platform. So yes, one of the biggest things that I've been fighting for a while is to get that green line extended all the way to Porter. There are some structural problems with that. One of the biggest of which is that Eversource, which has the electric substation right there across the street from the train tracks, their substation transformers sit within the rail right of way that have to extend to get to Porter Square. And instead of starting to scale to move that and relocate that infrastructure somewhere else, they've actually doubled down and investing on putting more transformers on that site that are in the way of the train going. So I know I fought that one for a while. It sucked, but that is one structural problem. So when the Green Line does, if we ever do get it extended on the border, which I think we should advocate for, A, the state's got to do it, and B, the state has to force/pay Eversource to relocate and transmission infrastructure somewhere else.
Would there be a plot for a stop around here that were to happen?
If that were to happen, certainly, right? The thing about like in Assembly, we got an extra orange line stop there because there was an existing track bed. It was just about bolting stop onto it. So what is perhaps more feasible in the short term, because like I said, there would have to be a lot of land takings to extend the Green Line there and some electrical infrastructure problems to overcome. I'm not saying they're not possible. I'm just saying the first year took us 30 years to get done. So the commuter rail, however, the Fitchburg line does have existing track bed. It is right here, and there are a number of proposals for getting a commuter rail stop somewhere along this stretch, right? Somewhere on this side of Porter Square, which would actually be huge in terms of the transportation impact from people coming from outside the city, where it's a little bit more affordable. And getting into here and minimizing the car trips in here. I don't have a commitment from the commuter rail, from the MBTA about that, but I can tell you there have been feasibility studies done on a stop that would exist basically between Kingman Road and the Argenziano School, like down there by the Buncas Bridge. If you know the big bridge that sails over Washington Street. And there are some people looking at what it would take to like have a community rail platform here. It's not the Green Line, I wish it was the Green Line. But yeah, no, you're right. I think ultimately the long-term solution is we have to solve transit problems and not just connectivity to the lines we already have, but also that north-south problem about it. So yeah, boy. I want to talk about that more. Like I said, my office hours, by the way, if this is your first time seeing me, my office hours every Friday for the last 6 years, I've had office hours from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock on my front porch and then virtual and now hybrid. So every Friday morning, 8 a.m., you can find me on my front porch or you can find me in the link that's on my website to have more of these conversations. I do, this is just a launching off point. And hopefully not just for this conversation, but for all these other conversations. So does that answer your question? Awesome. Cool. I said I was going to and then I'm going online. I'm getting out of your way, Ann, so they can see your face.
Hello. My name is Ann Samara. And I'm just building here in Zone Village. And I've lived here 47 years. And look, this process, they say it's taken a long time, but it really does come fast as anything. I don't like something you do it fast and hard. These people are good people from Somernova. Colin and Christian and Magic and Carlos. But it is a development, and we are very honest with them. The height, the parking. This is the craziest street in Summerville. We have 1,200 more parking spaces here on, you know, I've lived here 47 years. Yeah, I know this street. So they know. I'm very honest with them. We're very honest with them. They're good people, but we on the neighborhood council helped to mediate between you and the developer or Colin, and in fact, Janet can attest to that. She cared very much about the gym down here at the corner of James Street in Washington to not be built to big height. And we helped to mediate that. And you know, we can do that, make it really, you know, a good thing. But yeah, that's it. You know, the Unions for Neighborhood Council is here with the public, and we're working with them. So get in touch with us. Just go on to unionsforneighborhoodcouncil.com and we will talk about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ann. And I do want to also emphasize that it's a good story you bring up, actually. Another fab building right at the corner of Dana and Washington, right, which is now a coffee roaster. And the reason it's still a coffee roaster is because the Fab District exists and because I colored it deep blue on that back in 2019. They came in with a proposal to do 4 stories of housing and put something on the ground floor. And because it was a zoning change, it had to go through exactly this kind of process. And I had exactly this kind of meeting. And we heard all the voices in the neighborhood. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of consideration. Neighborhood council was involved. And in the end, the neighborhood looked at it and said, you know what, you're not bringing enough to the table for it to be something that we support as a change in the neighborhood. That's now we have a coffee roaster. And that's cool. I just need to fix the Fab zoning so they can serve coffee out the front of it. It's on my list. All right, so the process works. And I'm glad you're here to be part of it. Yes.
My name is Glenn. So I'm from the district. So I've been part of the dojo, and I've seen very fun of the dojo. Being a little louder, please. I'm not going from the street, but I'm hard to not loud, but I feel like this project will benefit the youth. I know I see I work with youth, so I see a lot of them, they're lost. A lot of them are stealing like blue bikes and stuff like that. They have to go. They're living in drugs. I take you to like they're all very large drugs, like faking and stuff like that. They do like 6th grade. Like that. So when I see all everybody come here together, it brings the yeah. I'd say like I understand you guys are frustrated with the land and the way I thought you guys have to trust the process when you guys go work. What kind of work you guys do to find a way to make it work better? I say thank you.
Well, thank you.
I get into my adulthood, so like I always wanted this to do myself. So for the next generation, I want to see that.
Yeah.
So
No, 100%. And I definitely want to lift that up because we do have a lot of folks here from the Mystic. We have a lot of folks who have been here in the dojo because it exists, because it was something that got created.
yeah, I've been talking about this for like 3 years ago, the Star Market on Broadway.
Yeah.
So like I've been to, when I growing up, I used to play basketball at the Proxy in Boston, but things like that, I could work out, swim, the basketball. So I wanted to see the same thing in summer. So, but I don't want, like, I know there's a lot of houses here, like they're old, like you want to keep them intact. So like, yeah, I understand all that, but in the rent, I want to move out my mom's house, but I don't want to just. I understand like the rent is too high. I live in Foster. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just want to see how possible go towards it. I know a lot of my friends like in back to those like their lost side and they try to come back and so like growing up, so I'm always thinking back. I got just like losing I lost a lot of friends to over
Yeah. Bill, I get it. You couldn't hear him. And I can't, it's okay. I can't say what he said as eloquently as he did, but he talked about his lived experience about being here and about the need for community spaces, about the need for a community center, about the negative impacts, and that the rent's too damn high. He would like to move out of his mom's closet, but also just what a positive impact of actually having a community center and spaces like this could have on the neighborhood and wanting to find a way that we can get to more and find solutions for everybody. So hopefully, did I get that good enough?
Yeah.
All right. You're gonna host the next one.
I'm trying to work on my books, so this is good opportunity.
All right, you did great. All right, I saw Bill Cavallini and Aaron Hemingway, and was there one more, or was that just Bill and Aaron? Oh, God, and Linda. Can I come back to you after I get these folks? All right, and then I'm gonna get Linda, and then I'm gonna get Steve right here. I'm sorry.
Hi. I only had a couple hours to look at the plan, and as I was looking, I was jotting notes on my phone. And the first thing I noted was, do the people in Duck Village and Tyler Street have any idea what this is going to do? And then the lady from Tyler Street so eloquently said so. I encourage everybody to look at the shadow studies in the appendices because they are stunning. the shadow studies for these large buildings. It looks to me like they will extend all the way to Somerville Ave and up to Summer Street in the winter. So beyond just the shadow that these buildings would have, I wonder what will happen to anybody who might want to like put in solar over there, because these developments are going to have an impact there, since Summerville is worried about stretch codes for various buildings. I've done the math and I see a couple mentions of we're going to add 50 street trees, and somewhere it says 142% increase, and then somewhere else it says there are currently 35 trees and it's going to go to 50. If I understand that correctly, 15 net new trees does not seem very impressive. So maybe there's a typo, but please, 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 more trees. The microforest is a great idea, but it doesn't look like there's going to be enough trees. And as far as the parking goes, I understand from what JT said that the zoning requires the parking. So first off, let's change the zoning because we don't need that much parking. The points about the commuter rail are very well said. If you're worried about getting people from the north, from the well-heeled suburbs, it's much easier to get a little platform put on the commuter rail that connects the line out to Fitchburg. And then you could also get the people from all the other northbound train lines that come into North Station who can use their commuter passes to come out on a 5-minute trip out from North Station to the same stop. You don't need all that parking. And furthermore, the trips that would encourage on Somerville Ave would really impact local residents getting to Market Basket, getting their kids to school. We shouldn't be adding, you build it, they will come, build more parking and they will come in their cars. There's a point on page 265 that talks about a redesigned bus network. And I'm just curious if that's aspirational or if there are more conversations already underway with the MBTA to redesign and add new bus lines, because yes, we need to add new bus lines, but it's just not clear if this is all aspirational stuff in the plan or not. And finally, I'd like to ask if SummerNova is advising on the vegetated roofs amendment that's also currently under discussion for zoning, and are they planning to accommodate it and do more than the minimum on that? Thank you.
All right, so thank you for that. I will say that I don't know if they have anything to do with vegetative growth amendment in terms of points well taken in terms of the commuter rail stuff as well. So I appreciate it. Have y'all been in any of the vegetative growth zoning conversations?
No, not directly. I think we've read it, you know, at least sort of like the ongoing conversations that have been happening. We've been piloting, I think, some of the elements that are embedded in that, the trees, the plants. I would imagine we would support it, but I think it's something that is important to us, you know.
Okay, so the answer was no, they've read it and they probably support it, but that's the answer I got. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Also on the bus line, there's a new bus that's proposed that would go on Summerville Ave that would run every 15 minutes. It's the T96.
T83, something like
I don't know. Okay, but it would run every 15 minutes. It would be one bus every 15 minutes. But if you do have 4,000 people trying to commute to an office building and you're commuting them on one bus every 15 minutes, if a bus holds 100 people, that's 200 people for 400 people an hour. I don't know if we're getting there with that one bus.
Thank you for the reminder. Yes, the bus network. So the bus network redesign is something that the MBTA actually already went through, and they added this high capacity bus. But you know, like as that 400 people an hour is not exactly at a rush hour. And so the idea of what do we do in terms of creating more transit support for anything that comes in at that scale is I think needs to be part of the conversation. So thank you for that. Did Bill also still have his hand raised?
He just wants to hear.
Okay, Bill just raised his hand because he wants to be able to hear. Great. All right. I had Linda and then we're going. All right, Linda, please, you're up.
And not, boy, those are some big acts to follow and big words to follow. And I really respect the passion I feel in this room. My name is Linda Kelly, and I've worked in Summerville since the mid-80s, starting residential programs. I've been at the high school doing mediation as a therapist in Summerville mental health. And I have about 37 years consulting at the Mystic Learning Center. I have been through a lot of youth. I've been through a lot of mayors, a lot of city councilors, a lot of people talking about community and rec centers. Hi, Pat, it's good to see you. And this has been a fight that I feel like I've been involved in for 40 years. And I understand that what Rocky Properties is doing is much larger than this little rec center, but I come from a world of nonprofits. And we basically work in script to save every dime and buy every bit of property we can, every bit of programming that we can. I just want to say that I was at a point in my career where I was retiring. I felt like I left Summerville with a bit of frustration and a sad heart. I've watched youth centers open and close. I would love the idea of the city maintaining a youth center. I started them in Malden. I started them in Medford. The city, it never seems to work every time I've seen it. The city has done some incredible work. They've gotten youth centers up and going. They last a year or two and then they go. So from my experience, to have a place, and at Mystic, many of you may not know what we are, but we are an after-school program based in the housing development in Summerville. We have 16 teenagers that work for us. Many of the youth you're meeting tonight came to us as children, worked for us as teenagers. We're now working with them as adults. When I have a developer come to our agency and offer $17,000 to have a Lego robotics program come in for kids that can't afford Lego kits, and to watch these kids become very passionate about what they're doing. And when I have a center that says, Linda, plan a paint night for all the parents that are down at the development, and plan a night for the kids to come and do painting. That's what you're seeing up on the wall. So from my little nonprofit standpoint, I could not be more grateful for what you have offered to the kids here. And obviously, I'm sorry, I'm not a developer and that's not my world, but human service is my world, and Summerville has been my world for over 40 years. I have watched our kids overdosing. I have spent nights with them at 3 o'clock in the morning in the Mystic Learning Center because we've dealt with suicides or fentanyl. When we had a massive suicide ring, I don't know if you all remember, in the late 80s, we had more suicides down at the housing development than we could handle. That's when we said, we're going to open up the program Tuesday and Thursday nights. How do we do this? How do we fund this? Couldn't find anybody to fund it. Several of us put our own money in to fund the staff to be there with the kids. So from my point of view, I just want to say thank you, because I want you to know that some of the youth here tonight, and I don't want to make them uncomfortable, public speaking is not fun, but they're invested. They are here because they care. They spent the day at Fluff Festival yesterday because they want to see their siblings, their cousins, their nieces, their nephews succeed in this city. And there's a lot of talk about the size of the building, and I respect all that. If I lived in this neighborhood, I'm not sure where my head would be. But for me, to finally have somebody to come into this city who says, I care about the youth and what do you need? And everything that I've asked them for what our needs were, we have gotten. So for me, again, I thank you very much. Excuse, I could cry, I'm a crier too. And it's been a very long night, but I understand you all have a battle to fight. Please keep in mind the small battle that I'm hoping to win here with the city and the youth and the people for them. So thank you.
And honestly, that's, I appreciate that, Linda. I appreciate your work for 40 years on it, but I also appreciate bringing that perspective, right? Because yeah, we all care about the size of movies. I'll tell you, me personally, my personal opinion is don't enter into this as much, because I'm here as your representative. I can speak for myself personally and say, in terms of heights of the buildings, the character of the neighborhood to me is more about the people who are able to live in them, the people who are able to survive in it, the people who are able to thrive in it. And so that's more important to me than what the building looks like or how tall it is. But I think we do have to civic attention on all of that. And I appreciate you bringing that lived experience into it. I appreciate folks who have brought in, appreciate your lived experience. So that hopefully, while we might freak out about different pieces of this, that we can hold that tension too and realize that, you know, there's an opportunity here to do better for everyone. And hopefully we can get something like that. But I don't know what that's gonna look like here. All right, you're right.
Hello, my name is Lisa Yvette, and I moved to the Summerville area back in the late 70s. And so I raised my kids in this area, and they had community centers, they had boys and girls clubs to go to, they had places that they could go to. And we all know that that was destroyed. There was supposed to be an opportunity for us to build another community center for our kids to go and be in a space. A number of these kids have always talked about the Star Market on Broadway. Why isn't the city doing something with that space? It's sat there for a long time. And so I'm happy to see you all here today. I'm happy to hear you speak up, and I hope you continue to speak up and be part of this process. And as Linda said, the Mystic Center has been very important. I took my kids to the Mystic Center from Powder House. I worked at Harvard. I would go pick them up at Powder House, drive to the Mystic. Fluffy took care of my kids. My kids are now teachers, but our kids need space. And you know what? Summernova has provided that space. Summernova has provided that opportunity for our kids to have a space where they feel safe, where they, and Summernova is trying to figure out how do we get our kids from the Mystic safely to this area, Clarendon Hill safely to a place where they can learn and thrive and be part of this community, and also possibly get the jobs that are going to be brought into these spaces. But these are the kids that are on the outside, right? I'm looking around this room, and you probably know why, right? We want our kids to be able to go to a place where they're safe. So continue speaking up, continue thinking about what Linda said about our kids, continue knowing what has not happened in this community, to have a community center for our kids. Can we believe that there's no space? We got the YMCA up there on Summerville High School. I mean, Summerville, what is that, Highland? You got the Summerville Y. Summernova has made a difference. They provided a space for these kids. I've been here, I'm here on Tuesdays. They've provided a space for these kids to come in and after school, know that they're gonna have something to snack on, to eat. They brought in fruit. They've taught these kids that this is a place. So continue your conversations, continue reading what they posted, continue bringing your questions, because that's what they want to hear. That's why JT is here. That's why the Summernova team is here. That's why I'm here, because I care. I care about all of these kids that want to be safe, that want to live to 30, to 50, not worry about dying at 16 or 17. They want a safe place. So please help us. Please help them, help Summernova find that point that allows these kids to be safe. Thank you.
I want to say also, Yvette didn't talk about herself, but if y'all have seen the hip hop fest that happens in Union Square every year, that's just because of it, right? Bringing the community together. So thank you for that. I see folks starting to roll for the doors. I know it's 9:45, but man, I'll stand here all night.
I just want to make a quick point, that my family comes out of this council project. Some of us made it for 7 minutes, my cousin died when he was there, got that murder. And what we're having from this point is disgusting. This is just for me personally. The idea that we were brought up in this Catholic house and has been a promise since my mother lived there as one of the first families who lived there. We put it there on purpose. We put it there to keep the poor people in the corner, and that's what they did. And bottom line is, you know, the first people I've ever heard who did that shit. About the people that do this mountain project. Yeah. So I have to say that that's a personal belief on my part. Nothing to do with you, Spring Neighborhood Council, but I think what these two women have just told you, my family members, some of us made about, some of us didn't. Yeah, and it's so important what you're saying, and I don't really want to either, because by God, what they're saying is true.
Wait till the rest of us here.
So.
All right, Frank, I'll tell you what she said. She said her mother was in the 6. A lot of her people didn't make it out of the 6. And the fact that the Summernova folks are actually giving a shit about people in the 6 might be the first person in her life that's here. So that's I don't know. You know what pretty good. We'll put the 2 together.
Did you approve with some impact?
All right. You can go to a neighborhood council meeting, Frank. Go to the corner. Oh, okay. We'll come to your house. All right. Y'all, I really appreciate it. Is there anybody else who wants to get their voices in right now? And the answer, saying no is also okay. We have heard a ton tonight. There's a lot to think about. There's a 500-page proposal plan idea. And so I want to appreciate you bringing your ideas in tonight. This is not the end of a conversation about ideas. It's not the end of a conversation about possibilities. It's not the end of a conversation about what it is we want to see in our neighborhood, what we want our neighborhood to be like. So again, you know, based on the amount of calls I get, you all have my phone number. It's on the city's website, 857-615-1532. I said it before, I live in the Purple House down next to Juliet's front porch, 8 a.m. every Friday. I'm available to you. And we also do, and I also have online office hours. You can find them at JTFORWARD2.com, JTFORWARD2.com. Easy to find. And I want to hear from all. I want to put these conversations together, especially these conversations that are coming from different parts of need. Right, whether it's the need to be able to live in your neighborhood, and maybe see the sky sometime, or the need to have a civic space, to have a community center, or the need to have an environmentally friendly development that starts to do anything about climate impact, right? Or the need to have a development that affects the heat island that we have in this neighborhood. So I think there's a lot of people here who understand the need. Nobody understands this neighborhood better than the people who live it. So I want to thank you all for having your voices in the conversation here. Now I know y'all also. I've said it a couple times. What is it? First and third?
First and third Monday,
The first and third Monday at
7 p.m.
7 p.m. The neighborhood council is in this space. So if you're curious about the neighborhood council,
Here, but also on Zoom.
here and also on Zoom, right? And before that, from what hours is the office hours? Y'all?
6 to 7.
From 6 to 7 every first and third Monday. The Summerville Rocky team is also down here. I have not been here for those office hours.
They're starting next week, so.
Sorry, that's why I haven't been here today. Although I'm definitely gonna be here for the second term next month. So yeah, is there anybody with any last things? So I don't want to shut anybody off. And also anybody online, if you got anything, raise your hand now or hold your peace for, until my next office. What's up?
If I may not speak, if I can speak one more time, at least in my opinion, I want to say that, and I feel like we're probably have most of the people, but the criticism you brought, none of them have been about the community center. I think that expansion seems wonderful. As someone who grew up in a place that didn't have a community center like that, it's something that costs a fantastic opportunity. And I can already see how much I would have liked to have as a kid. The concern I think I have, and the other people have, with a lot of the external implications of the other parts of this project. I absolutely think that there can be this development that brings this community center, and ensures that it's a livable place for people who still live here. We want this to be a community that's safe and prosperous for everyone. And we also, that doesn't mean you have to take away these new opportunities for people, especially those who have houses in the past.
I appreciate that, Grant, and I hope that we can call your neighbors, right? The ones that didn't make it here tonight. Invite them into this conversation so that hopefully we can figure out a better path forward that gets us all of this. So thank you very much for coming here tonight. I really appreciate you choosing to spend 3 hours of your evening with us. Look, I'm gonna be hanging around for a while packing this up, so feel free to meet your neighbors, exchange some phone numbers, and thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.